Okay, so I was going to go one direction for today's video and got sidetracked with a bunch of other stuff. I went ahead and switched out my old bed and I changed my mind and decided to keep the smaller bed. So I was messing with that and doing laundry. I turned the air off in the house today to open the windows, and when I went to take my little window unit out of the window, it leaked all over my bed. I thought it was going to leak the other direction, and it did not. So I had to do laundry anyway, and since I had stripped the bed so I could get pictures to post of that bed, I decided I didn't want to put the clean stuff on the old bed when I've posted it, and I could just get the other bed in there. So it's not going to be near as much money that I would have asked for the bed that I'm going to be using after all. But it's nicer. It's a pillow top. I like softer beds, I think, than the Tempur-Pedic was also always just kind of overly stiff. I mean, it was like, okay, I saw today the tag. It said it was, they got it in 2007, so it's 18 years old, right? I think. Yeah. And I've had it for like 5 years. So I don't remember the story with the other bed other than there was something with it, and like the something about it, it like had a drop off or something that was kind of weird and wasn't especially comfortable, and Taz would lay on it and like roll into me more than he normally does. So it was a pain in the ass. So then the family friend said they had the Tempur-Pedic mattress that they were parting ways with, and did I want it? So I said sure. And that thing's fucking heavy. 222. It was kind of fun though. Not really. Okay, so the reason I said I would take Gracie's old bed, I mean, aside from the fact that it was basically brand new and slightly smaller than the one that I've been sleeping on, was because that fucking Tempur-Pedic is heavy as fuck. It was, I mean, it's just a queen, but I saw today that it apparently weighs like 118 pounds. So it's like, well, no shit. No wonder it's so damn hard for me to move on my own. But I would like a bed that I can move on my own, so I don't have to ask my, my family for assistance along the way, especially now that my brother's out of state. So I decided to keep the smaller one and go ahead and get it in the house before, any spiders or rodents move in over at the storage unit and like mess it up. So, yeah. So, I got a new bed. And the dogs were very concerned about it. I got the old bed out of my room and all the way to the truck by myself. I discovered the last time that I moved it, since it was so fucking heavy, and I moved it from my brother's old room to my old / current room, because, I decided to switch my office and my bedroom around, right? So when I did that and realized how fucking heavy that thing is, I didn't know how much it weighed back then. We have this like 4-wheeled cart thing that I, when I was struggling with it on the other one, it's like, hey, I bet that would help. And my dad was like, well, let me know if you need any help. It's like, I'm not asking you for nothing. Fuck that. So I went and got the 4-wheeled cart, since I knew today that it was fucking heavy. I just went ahead and started with the cart, and I got it moved, and I moved the truck around. So I had to switch the car and the truck around and back the truck in so I could, access it easier. and not have to go as far. But man, that thing's fucking heavy. And it's really nice that I have these super helpful herding dogs that like to be like ass deep in the middle of everything. So Taz is like, the entire time I was like trying to move that out and the other one in, he's like trying to supervise, trying to sniff it and get all the smells off the new one when he's, you know, coming down the hallway, figuring out where it came from and all that stuff, which came from my brother's old house, and his dogs have been on it, but you know, so yeah, that was fun. But new bed. It feels really tall, but I mean, it kind of is. I think I said something about that. I was like, I don't know that I'm going to leave the bed frame on it. The nice thing was I shrunk it, or I got the other one off and took it to the storage unit and everything. When I got back, I was like, all right, so I know I need to shrink this down because it's a queen size, and you know, the other one's a full size, so I need to shrink. And then I was thinking, my headboard, have a queen headboard, and it goes so nicely in my room, and I'm not done using it. So where it was at, since I have to, okay, there is a mattress that is basically in storage in my room, which is not real convenient, behind my bed. So it works out well enough there because Gidget likes to lay on it to, you know, look out the window when the AC is not in the window. You know, but because it was there, you know, that shoves the bed over several inches. So the headboard was where I needed it to be for the queen bed, right? So since I shrunk that down, there's this gap behind the other bed that's in there, the mattress. And so I was like, I'm going to shove that down and still use it. Had to move my Ankh and Eye of Ra and Eye of Horus, so they're over slightly more than they were. I did not park ideally for this light after all. I was thinking maybe it would be, yeah, but there's too much car blocking it. So anyway, so yeah, I had to move those, but luckily I moved them easily. They did not break. And I just kept saying, thank you that these aren't going to break. And that I can do this, and it will be an easy move, and it will all be fine. And it was. So, you know, I gained like a few inches on that side of the bed now, and had to move Ziva's bed over closer to mine, so it's butted up against it again. I mean, I didn't have to, but why not? She's so happy when she's right next to to that. She'd probably be happier if I went ahead and put one of the elevated beds back in there. I guess I could technically try the smaller of the three. I have two, and my mom came up with one online, so that one's a prettier color, but whatever. But the two bigger ones are just in the living room, and the smaller one stayed in the office because I didn't really have room for it next to my bed with the queen bed in there. So now I'm thinking maybe I should try it. But I know that's one of her favorite spots to hang out. And, you know, like, she likes the bed in my bedroom. Right, her little bed with it's got like a freaking armrest looking thing on it that wraps around three sides. And I think it's like a cooling bed. My dad's dog was the one it was purchased for. She was the one that used it the most, but then they kept flipping it up, so she ended up not being able to use it. But when she died, it was like, you know what? I'm stealing it. Because they didn't want it in there. It was like in the way, because they have this king-size bed in this room that is, for some reason, the master bedroom is smaller than my bedroom. or like a foot. It's not a huge amount, but or inches even. It does have a bathroom attached to it, but like it just never made sense that it's like, why would the master bedroom be smaller than the the bedroom next to it? And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if when I get out of there for good, if they don't, like, actually, see, I was gonna say bust out a wall and make it a bigger room, but honestly, I think what'll be more likely to happen is somebody's getting thrown out of that room. So, yeah. But whatever. But anyway, so I got the mattress, the full-size bed moved over, and that was so much easier to move by myself, so I don't have to ask anybody's help. And I posted the mattress topper for like $25, and then I posted the bed and the box springs for like 20 or best offer. And honestly, if it goes for free, I don't care. I just figured I'd, hope for the best and maybe get a little cash on it. But if they asked, I'd probably say, as long as you get it out of here, take it. I don't care. The bookcase went today, and I'm supposed to meet somebody for the plant stand on Thursday. She already sent me the money for it and everything. So yeah, that's where that's at. But I sent the money from the apps that I was using and had it sent to me on, went ahead and sent that to my bank. So as soon as one of them hasn't got there yet, but I think it's supposed to be there tomorrow. But after that goes, then I will pay the shit that's due this week. So that'll be the storage unit and the two other things. And one's for my concert tickets, because apparently you can buy those in 4 too. And I think I paid the first 2 payments on it, so this will be the third one. But yeah. And then I have a few other odds and ends, like next week, so hopefully more of that shit sells. But there's a table that I have posted on OfferUp that I'll probably go ahead and post it on. Oh, I think I did post it earlier on Facebook. Because apparently, but all the stuff that I've been selling, I think I've sold an equal amount on Facebook as I have OfferUp. Technically more on OfferUp because I had it split on 2 posts. Like one was for a set of 2 coffee tables, a lamp, and a bookcase that all matched. And the other one was like 2 matching end tables. But then I sold like the bookcase and the plant stand. Wasn't there something else? Fuck, I don't know. Yeah, there was something that was $20. The dress nightstand, that one. Yeah, so we had more drama, a little bit, not a huge amount, earlier. And I was all set on coming over here and doing a video, and had one thing in my mind, and I was gonna do it, and I'll probably do it tomorrow instead. Let it percolate a little more, I guess. But after I got the bed moved, when I kept having to go through the room earlier, my dad had some, right-wing news bullshit on TV, and I was just like, fuck. So every time I would go through there, I'd be making smart-ass remarks and responding to things that the news reporter on the TV was saying, and making smart-ass remarks about the pedo-in-chief, that kind of stuff. And my dad didn't appreciate it, which I don't give a fuck, because I don't appreciate having to listen to that bullshit. But I discovered that, or I didn't discover it, I had this one kind of on reserve. So I've talked about how, every now and then, okay, in the past couple years since I've been doing this, kind of deconstruction and healing work on my YouTube space, probably just lay down here across this whole console so I have better lighting. Anyway, in the past couple years, it occurred to me that, my dad could be using his headphones to listen to a lot of the bullshit that he listens to, and he doesn't. So he's basically forcing anybody that comes through the room to have to listen to the same shit, right? So I was thinking, why do I need headphones if he's not using headphones? So, and I have two songs that are my go-tos right now. So if we're on the church-related bullshit, my go-to song is the Rotting Christ, Apage Satana, right? So, love that song. Especially after I looked up the translation of the words and found out it's the Lord's Prayer. And yet, like, the drums and just the sound of it, and, Satana, clearly Satan, right? So, yeah, so the translation of that is Begone Satan. So I think it's funny when my dad's listening to church shit to listen to that over the top of it. And, he's thinking, because it's metal, that it's like devil's music or something. It's like, dude, I guarantee you these guys have just judging by the music in and of itself, with some of the things that I know of their music, I'm going to say they're closer to the Christ message than the church is. So, yeah, especially the one that's, running rampant in the States, trying to hijack everything from everybody and, doing that shit. The other one, for political bullshit, is Falling in Reverse, trigger warning. It's like, cool. So I went in the room several times, and he had that, or like the political bullshit on TV. So I was like, fine. When it was time to go get food, I had that song playing in my back pocket on repeat. I went in there, got my food, and went back into my office, and then, every time I went in there, it was just replaying, because I was, doing laundry and getting the food and putting stuff up and all that fun stuff. So, yeah. But, of course, he's trying to be a dick because I'm playing music that he clearly doesn't like, and my shirt says I'm a delight. So, hey, that's how I roll. It actually was, when I had the other plan in mind, I don't know, it just seemed fitting. But whatever I do tomorrow, I'm sure it'll be fitting too. So, as of yet, there is no plan for tomorrow other than doing a video. So, I mentioned the other day, last time I looked, I had 268 videos. So then I was thinking, how long is it going to take me to do 300? So now I'm thinking, maybe I'll go back to where I was, or how I was doing it before, where I was doing like a video every day, so I could, get, I started doing that because it was, okay, I hit the 1 year anniversary on November 11th, 2024, 1 year anniversary of doing the channel. And I had like 80 some videos, and I wasn't doing them like real super consistently. It was like, I go like I do like 3 or 4 a week, maybe. If that, sometimes it was less, sometimes it was more, but that was kind of standard. So after I hit the 1 year anniversary, so it's November 11th, and I'm thinking, I bet I could do 100 before the end of the year. It's like, shit, I bet I could do 100 by the end of the month. So I started pushing them through. And that, interestingly, that was actually when, like, I started getting any kind of growth on my channel at all. Because first year, I made it to a grand total of 12 subscribers. Granted, I was not trying to actively grow my channel at all. So I started doing the videos every day just so I could make it to 100. And then I looked one day and I had like 37, and I know it's 37 because it was one that, you know, that's my grandpa's number, my great grandpa. And so it was like, went from 12 to 37. And it's like, ooh, something happened. And then, I don't know, the next time it was like, I mean, I could guesstimate 64 because 64 is my dad's mom's number because she was born on June 4th. However, I'm not going to guarantee that was the actual number. So I'm also thinking 63. But in that case, that could be Gracie, because these numbers work even for, you know, people that aren't in spirit, if you will. So, yeah, but I don't know. Ouch. Sorry. Yeah, but then, like, it started jumping, and it's like, ooh, what's going on here? Right? So, for a while, I was doing videos, like, every day, but then I got to a point where I kind of hit a wall and needed to rest for a couple days, and found out that's also not a terrible thing. And there are some times that I'll have an idea for something I want to talk about, but then if I give it a couple days, it's like there's more information that I've gathered to help with that frame of thought. So, hello, steering wheel. But yeah, I'd get out of the car, but it's kind of chilly out. I could just shift direction so it's possibly not blocked if I lean back where I normally sit. I don't know. So I said the other day that I was going to do my running on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and then this morning I got up and I was thinking, because today's Monday, and I was like, I could run. So I ran. I probably would have skated otherwise, but maybe not, because I also had, you know, I had the bed situation came up. That was why I didn't skate after all, although I'm less inclined to want to skate after I did run. But still not something that I would have necessarily ruled out just because I did, because I've done that before too. But I try to give myself rest at some point. So yeah, I don't know. Yesterday, I talked about how the one guy, I think his name's Chris Goldsmith, I think he's the one I was talking about. He had a post talking about how the government is trying to line up to take benefits away from female vets. And, you know, so I gave my TBI spiel, you know, including the stories of what happened in basic training, and that I didn't get any kind of treatment for them because the first time I was too stubborn and pissed off that I got made fun of and for tripping when I cracked myself in the head, even though I knew afterwards that she didn't know that I cracked myself in the head until I was bleeding all over the place. But, you know, it was like, because that was still, you know, she's making fun of me because that's what they do to new recruits, right? So, because of my stubbornness, I didn't go get it checked out, even though I was bleeding. Then the next time when I got nailed in the head with the pitched roll of toilet paper, busted me in the eye pro in the temple by an actual pitcher, right? So like somebody who played college baseball and then was on the Army's baseball team as well. Yeah, I got nailed in the head with a roll of pitched toilet paper. And that one, I felt bad because I knew it was an accident and I didn't want him to get in trouble. So I fucked myself over and didn't, report either one of those. I mean, granted, there was an audience for both of them, although the one audience, the people that I was marching with, they weren't really paying attention to me. It was more just the fact that, I got made fun of for tripping, and then she called me, or made me fall out because I was bleeding all over the place and had to go clean myself up. But the other one, there was like the whole platoon was in there, so it's like, cool. But I ain't gonna get checked out for that one either, and I should have. Although part of that, I kind of wonder if it was because it was so close to the end, because I think we were doing like final wrap-up stuff, because like the next couple of days were like family day, and then we were getting out of basic and moving on to AIT, which is the advanced individualized training. So yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on, so I just didn't, right? But then when I got my TBI, that ended my military career. There was no documentation of having done anything on military time. So when I got the last one that ended my career, there's no documentation for the other stuff. So I got nothing from it other than ousted. And technically I could probably have fought for it a little more, but at that point in time I was not in a good headspace, because I was with my freaking ex at that time, and so I got this whole mind fuck going on anyway with dealing with shit with him, and then I break my brain, and then the military thing just kind of it just was easier to be done with it, honestly. But I fell outside of military time, so I didn't get anything for it. And since I hadn't had any kind of documentation for the stuff that I had on military time, I didn't get anything out of it. So I comment on this guy's post, and several people liked the comment, and a few people responded. Even though I think most of them only read my first comment, I responded to myself to finish the story, and a few people did read that one. But that one was more a rant about the ways the military sets you up to fuck yourself over. But yeah. So, just realizing half this parking lot's not lit up. So yeah. Okay, cool. Anyway, but he responded today, and I guess when I was thinking about it, he was talking about thanks for sharing your story, and you have support from people in the community, and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, I've never gotten benefits from the military. Like, there was a brief span of time that I had car insurance through USAA when I was with my ex, but then that didn't last for real long. But other than that, like, that's all the benefits I've ever gotten from my military service. I did get a $5,000 sign-on bonus when I first went in, and since my contract ended early, I had to pay a chunk of that back. Like, they took it out in taxes. But like, otherwise, I feel like the biggest thing was, okay, so I have like between $6,000 to $8,000 left for undergrad student loan payments, because conveniently Sally Mae was like private loans, right? So they didn't count for what the military would cover. So the loans that I had through the U.S. Department of Education, they covered that one, which was like $16,000. So I do appreciate that that one was gone. However, when everything went to shit and nothing had been working out for me on that end anyway, I kind of, I did that crab thing of shrinking because I didn't want to draw unnecessary attention to myself and take the chance of having the freaking student loan dumped back on me. That was like a big reason that I, have tried to just disappear as far as the military thing goes. I am going to try to reposition myself and see if I can get better lighting without leaning, because my elbow kind of is sore. So hold on. Okay, so I'm still gonna have to slouch a little bit, but it's better, I think. So at least I'm not leaning on my elbow. Anyway, yeah. So I was just trying to stay under the radar and not be noticed, so they didn't try to throw that back on my lap too, because I didn't get to finish out my contract. So it was this big aggravating thing, and then I have the chaplain that I've talked about that I worked with a couple times and kind of connected with a few times outside of the military experience, and he's pretty jaded from his he was a chaplain and he got shat on by his church, so he is I think he's kind of deconstructing in a way on that end too. But anytime I was around him, he was always like, you have benefits you need to, be getting. You need to take advantage of these. It's I really just don't want them to pay me any attention, because I don't want them to give me that one back. And, it doesn't matter if he tells me that they're not going to give me that back or whatever. It's still that, it was just something that made me want to continue avoiding being noticed, just so we didn't risk getting that dumped back on me. So, yeah. Because it's there for a while, when I married my ex, and then all the negative synchronicities came in to very much show me that I was not where I was supposed to be anymore. Yeah, I didn't want that. That was, I wasn't trying to have more things that could be dumped on me going along with the negative synchronicities, although I'm pretty confident I'm where I'm supposed to be now. So, yeah, and even then, it's while I was not supposed to be with him for I was not meant to be with him, but at the same time, I was meant to be with him from the standpoint of I had set the intention to learn what it is that makes people end up in toxic marriages and feel like they can't get out of them, right? And to show that you can have a good life even after divorce, no matter what the fucking church wants to tell you, and no matter how much they try to demonize it. If you're in a shitty situation with somebody you're not supposed to be with, even if you were supposed to be with them for a time, that doesn't mean you have to be stuck with them forever. And so I got the lessons that I needed out of that, and then it was on me to get out of it. And that's where the twin flame thing has been essential in moving me along. And even then, it started it started nudging me along before I even really realized what was going on. I've talked about how when I think I had just gone back to Alabama for the last time, and it was, this has to feel real. Everybody has to believe that this is real, because this is the last attempt. If this does not work out, I'm done. And I was just kind of keeping a little running tab open for myself of all the things that, he was demonstrating with why he was not somebody I needed to be with any longer. And it was, the constant blame shift, the gaslighting, the making purchases. Okay. Example. When I was up here for the 9 months before I went back for the last hurrah to attempt to make it work, he got a couple different types of reptiles that would get to be potentially up to 12 feet in length from nose to tail, right? And he had the biggest, or the most potential for getting the biggest was the water monitor. But there's also a tegu that he lied to me about how he ended up with it. And, he said the company that he sent him the water monitor that died, there were 2 water monitors he got from the same company. I think he paid for one. It died. So they sent him another one that also died. He said that they sent him a tegu as a way to make up for their, for their water monitors dying. I think he was connected with a company that was just, nabbing them out of the wild and shipping them sick or whatever, and, that kind of not natural and not helpful process. And then the tegu obviously was not from the same place because it was healthy. So if they have a history of doing that, and also, why would somebody send you a reptile that could, I forget how big tegus actually get, 6 to 8 maybe? Not gonna swear to it by any means, but I know, I remember being pissed because there were at least 2. Yeah. Okay, there's the water monitor, the tegu, and then the iguanas he did shortly after I got back. So he got 3 because they're conveniently 3 for whatever. I think he said 3 for 10. He said you could sell the other 2. It's like, I don't want any part of any of this. But I ended up having to be the one to rehome 2 of them. And it was just a whole bullshit thing. But, it was just like, the water monitor, he admitted that he had no intention of telling me about, except that it was something that he couldn't hide from me. It's like, I'm pretty confident there's no way you could hide any living being in this space and I wouldn't eventually find out about it, regardless of how big or small it was. Because that's just, I am kind of sensitive to the animals and the energies in the space, so I would eventually find it. Yeah. But just stuff like that, right? So when the list got, it wasn't even that it had to get big enough. It was just keeping track of the ways that he was actively showing me he didn't respect me at all. And finally choosing myself, right? But the point of that tangent was when the twin flame stuff started coming, kind of nudging me, I guess, was when, okay, so I was leaning against the counter. I remember that much. I think he was at work. I don't remember what I was doing. I was looking at something on my phone, but I don't know exactly what it was. But I remember this sort of conversation coming into my thoughts. It was like my counterpart was asking if, it was okay for him to get married. And I was like, no. It's like, this is bad enough that I'm going to have to be going through a divorce on my end. Why do we need to complicate it any further by bringing anybody else into this unnecessarily? It's like, this is bad enough. I don't want to have to do that. I remember this whole thing that just kind of like popped up in the back of my head and just kind of like, that's weird. But it was like this whole thing that I think it was just kind of a nudge to make sure I was really serious about leaving my ex. And of course, at that point, I was pretty damn serious, and I was, just collecting things at that point as far as all the information I needed to disconnect from that situation for good. But yeah, like this whole thought process just comes in, and it's like this communication with somebody that's not there, not physically there. And it was like a whole nother level. And it's like, I was aware of it, but it was also slightly out of my grasp of like really understanding what was going on in that moment, I think. But, I've talked about how like the twin flame thing has been an ongoing thing throughout my entire life. I've talked a lot about when I was 4, I am confident he checked in with me to make sure I was still on track, because you still have free will. So you still have, you make the agreements on the other side, you incarnate, and then, you can still change your mind if you decide you don't want to go that path after all. And I was very much, yes, let's do it. Right? So I am confident, based on various things, that when I was 4, he was checking in to make sure we were still on track before he incarnated, right? And, I've talked about, like, with that, an example. So I was 4. So a few years ago, when I was messing around on the dating websites the last time, it's like I knew I didn't really want to meet somebody that way, but at the same time, it's like trying to see what was out there theoretically. Even though if you're not going to end up with somebody on the app, why are you even wasting your time on the app? But still, just kind of to see what was available, right? Anyway, for one, I don't remember which one it was, but it was talking about what's the youngest you would be willing to date. And I had this, I was seriously considering it. It's like, I don't think I could realistically consider dating anybody more than 5 years younger than me, like based with what I know of psychology and brain development kind of things, and maturity levels and whatnot. It's like, I feel like where I was at that point, which I think it was like 37 or something, it's like, I don't think I could go any younger than 5 years younger, or any more than 5 years younger. So there's one piece, right? And with that, of course, dragons have always been something that has been a big thing in my life to some degree, right? So I went to New Palestine schools. The mascot was a dragon. In high school, I was in marching band. Middle school and high school, I was in marching band. In the year 2000, we did a marching band show called Year of the Dragon, because it was a Year of the Dragon. And so, we also had these things where you get somebody's name, I forget what they called it, Secret Santa kind of a thing, but I think it had a different name. But so you have somebody's name for the whole band season, and each week, going into contest days, you would get them like a little care package kind of a thing. And, I remember getting like this dragon beanie baby because it was the school mascot, and 4444. And it was something that was kind of cute and fun for me. And then there's usually like candy or drinks or something like that, right? So yeah. But so I ended up, of course, because the school mascot was a dragon and I was in the marching band, so the dragons were kind of a thing. I ended up with some little like dragon statues that were kind of cute and like weird miscellaneous stuff. Figure out where my little dude went. I remember there's two of them. They were. I don't remember what the brand was, but it was like this set. I don't know if it was through Hallmark or something like that, where they had just little dragon things, and one of them is holding a big coffee cup, and he's I don't know if he's yawning or he's got some kind of tired look on his face, and it says, "Where's my coffee?" And I think my mom ended up getting that one for my dad, and then I got this other one, but I don't remember what the other one was doing. I just always remembered the coffee one. 555. So yeah, but so dragons have always been important, right? So then I was thinking, if I said that I didn't think I could date anybody more than 5 years younger than me, and then go to do some maths and whatnot, right? So I was born in 1983, which was the year of a pig, year of the pig, the water pig specifically, because I need more water in my chart, or I need another system to add more water to my chart, perhaps, or another system for water, whatever. Anyway, so 5 years younger, that would be roughly 1988, right? And if you look that up, 1988 is also a year of the dragon. So it's like these weird connections that it's like, yeah, I am pretty sure. And also, going back to that, when I settled in on being 4, it's like if he checked in when I was 4 to make sure we were still on track for the path the path that we had lined up, I guess, it would make sense, because odds are his mom got pregnant sometime that year, and he's spent, and then by the time I turned 5, then he's born, right? So that would make sense. I can make that make sense. But like little things like that. Anyway, and then how the twin flame thing has been popping up. I always had the idea that it would be like, or that I wanted that kind of grand love story and whatnot. And there have been things along the way. Like, okay, when I was dating the guy in high school, he had brown hair and brown eyes. And I don't know that it was anything to do with him and making that connection, but I think it was just, I don't know if it was before then or that just kind of settled in as whoever he is out there, he's got brown hair and brown eyes. Just knew it. It's like, okay. But when I was with my ex, of course, there was the span of time where it was, but I know he's not the one. And so I tried to break up with him 3 times in the first 2 years. And it did not stick because, for various reasons. Mainly his sister was in my section, and I didn't want her to be a pain in the ass and make the rest of my band career miserable. So it was easier to still be in a relationship with her brother, so she has to play nice. And then the other part was when Tyler and I were section leaders. Just I remember, I wanted to be taken seriously as a leader, and I didn't want to be just another girl with a crush on Tyler. So it was it's just easier to stay with the guy that I was with, that was already, he already knew some of my, my suicide attempt and some of the stuff like that. So he knew there was some stuff going on with me that he could support me with. And, you know, he was a good guy. So it was just a safe option. And yeah, but like, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it was because he had the brown hair and the brown eyes that triggered that. I know that the person that I'm going to end up with has them as well, or if there was something else to it, or if it was beforehand or whatever. But there have been little things along the way, like little hints and whatnot. And I made another connection today. And, okay, so I wear this necklace, right? The Eye of Horus, right? And so the Eye of Horus is the left eye, right? And the Eye of Ra is the right eye. And of course, I don't remember what the Eye of Ra was, but there was like destruction and punishment in some kind of way. But then, okay, the Eye of Horus is about healing and protection, which is why I wear this, right? So, you know, partly because I was trying to stock up on the things to help me protect my boundaries and, you know, to remember the importance of protecting my boundaries and whatnot. And so when I came across this Eye of Horus and realized it was it represents protection, it was like, I need to have that. You know, so I wear this, and then I have the things over my bed, the little things that, yeah, LunaWoodArts, I think, is the group I got that off of Etsy from. I have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what their name was. But so I got that, and okay, the way you've seen, if you've watched my videos, you've seen that I have the little things, and it's got the Ankh, which is roughly third eye level with the top section, the little loopy thing, right? So I have that kind of third eye, and then, you know, Eye of Horus and Eye of Ra, right? Well, thinking about it, it's like, okay, so the left side is the feminine side, and the right side is the masculine side. More dominant, action-oriented, you know, and then more passive, I don't know if that's the right word, but receptive is definitely one. Yeah, I think passive maybe, but I don't know. Anyway, but, so the Eye of Ra is the masculine side, the Eye of Horus is the feminine side, right? And part of there's this other thing that came up on the twin flame with actually knowing who he is and whatnot. And I've talked on here several times too about when I was still really struggling with the worthiness wound and not believing myself to be worthy of his time and attention and all that stuff, if you will. So I wasn't protecting my energy. That's a thing to make note of. It was early on in the journey. I was not protecting my energy and setting boundaries because I didn't know that was the thing I needed to do yet. And so I have this thought where, you know, I was struggling with the idea of, you know, like, I know this connection is, okay, I keep having this intuition ping telling me that this is him, and yet I'm still not feeling like somebody who's worthy of somebody like him, worthy of their attention, right? So, still struggling with the worthiness wound. And I don't remember exactly what it was that I thought or said, but I remember it was something really steeped in the worthiness wound. And the next day I get on Instagram, and he's got a picture where he's, you know, got this girl in the picture with him, and she is standing on his left side with her hand on his chest. And I remember just like this, sounds really crazy because I've not met him, this whole, like, it was like this rage that just like passed through my system. There's 444, as I mentioned, the rage. And like this big sense of jealousy. And it's like, ooh, it's like, I am not okay with this feeling when I haven't even met this person. It's like, where is this coming from? So then I have the realization that comes through. Okay, so I'm in the shower and I'm like, I see this jealousy and I don't understand it, but I want to. Where is this coming from? What does this mean? And what came to mind was my tattoo, right? So I've talked about this on here several times too. So I got the tattoo, and it is, the verse is from Hailstorm's Bad Girls World, I believe. And it says, if you'll be yourself for no one else, they'll hate you because you're beautiful, right? So when I got this tattoo, I knew I wanted it. Like, that verse, as soon as I heard it, it just got my attention, and it was just like, this is important. And it's like, I kind of want that on me somewhere, right? So I ended up, coming up with the idea and everything with my little hibiscus flowers and whatnot. And when I got it, I was like, okay, I've talked about this many times too. This was tattoo number 9. And this, my little sugar skull, was tattoo number 10. Number 10 is the very first tattoo that I've gotten without first panicking, essentially, over the possibility of the tattoo sending me to hell. Just like every single time I got a tattoo leading up or going through number 9, which actually makes perfect sense because 9 is about, end of cycles and stuff. So that's a new connection I just now made. So my 9th tattoo, being the end of a cycle, was the tattoo that made me, or that I went into, and it was the last one that I was obsessing over. This is the thing that's going to send me to hell. I was like, but you have 8 other tattoos, and that hasn't proven like it's going to really be the thing yet. It's like, you've had this concern every single time you've gotten a tattoo, and yet you still seem to be okay. So, so I was kind of struggling with it, and I had to sit with it for a while. So when I have this thing pop up or when I'm in the shower after this jealousy feeling has just popped up, I realized that, I thought this tattoo was wrong for a while. Like, I got it, and I even have done videos making fun of myself because I thought it was wrong. Because, like, because it just says, if you be, I think. But, I mean, it makes sense because people always say, be yourself, right? So, but for a while I was thinking it should be you'll, right? Like, YOU''LL, you will. And I even made fun of myself for a while thinking it was wrong. And then, like when but the thing was, because I had this thought that this was going to be the thing that sends me to hell, one of my tattoos, I was like paralyzed from being able to double check the song lyric, right? Normally, if I'm going to use a song lyric for something, like when I'm writing or whatever, I will check it over and over and over and over again to make sure it is right, from multiple sources. And for that one, I could not do it. And it was like, I was just kind of like frozen, I can't do that. This will be the thing that proves that it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. I am getting messages from OfferUp saying that, I have a new message about my bike and about the queen bed that I just posted. I hope they're legit, because that would be awesome. But anyway, Right, so I had this idea that the tattoo was wrong for a while. I'm wanting to say over a year I thought it was wrong. Because, of course, when I got back home, then I heard it, or when I heard it, or finally looked it up, I think I finally looked it up, and I saw somewhere where it had the YOU apostrophe LL, and I was like, fuck, I got it wrong. And, you know, I was kicking myself for a while. I made fun of myself for a while because I was convinced it was wrong. And it's like, the interesting thing is, when I stopped trying to believe that it was wrong, and I was like, all right, let's check it again. After I told the story on here, interestingly enough, the source that I went to had it the other way. And it's like, now I'm seeing it the other way. So now it's looking like it's right. Even though I was like freaking out because it was wrong and because I was just convinced it was wrong. So there again. Interestingly, this morning I got a message from the guy with Hay House. He did he was one of the people that did the writer's workshop. His name is Reid Tracy. He has these emails that he sends out, and today's he mentioned Wayne Dyer there again, which Wayne Dyer is, you know, Hay House is the reason I heard of Wayne Dyer to begin with, but he mentioned the thing that I've heard from Wayne Dyer on a lot of things that I've listened to of his, where he says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Right? It's like, well, that makes perfect sense. So, you know, when I was convinced that it was wrong, I was seeing everything that was supporting the idea that it was wrong. But then when I started, you know, I was like, okay, now wait a second. Let's see if it is. You know, I'm actually being open to the possibility that what I was seeing before was wrong. And then I started seeing it the other way. It's like, that kind of makes sense. And it's kind of funny that it came up today. You know, so, but yeah, but like the deal with the tattoo is because I was so obsessed with the idea that that was the thing that was going to send me to hell, I refused to check like I would have normally checked. And I realized that, you know, that was very much the abandonment wound, right? I was afraid that God was going to basically cast me out because I wanted to have ink on my body. And which is why this whole thing with the twin flame thing has been a massive component in helping me to deconstruct from the religious side of things, as also was my divorce to begin with, because, you know, I realized when I was getting divorced, or before I was completely set on the divorce was happening before I left Alabama at this point. And I was thinking about how much religion and bad religious beliefs were the thing that had kept me trapped for as long as it had, right? Because, you know, basically religion has a history of marrying off little kids to dirty old men, right? So, yeah, I actually saw a creator yesterday, I think, that had done a thing talking about this very point about, you know, because I heard something where the pedo-in-chief is trying to make it okay to marry 14-year-olds again. It's like, and he's going off about, that is an actual child, and if you need somebody to tell you that a grown man cannot marry a child, you're just a sick person, right? So it's like, oh, I'm going to have to find out who that guy was, because I was all about that video. It's like, yes. So yeah. But yeah, that's like a big part of why religion has pushed for young girls to be married off to dirty old men, right? Because it's basically, you know, they want access to the sacred womb space, because if they can get their nasty little clutches in on your good energy, and especially younger, like, okay, for like, I think I mentioned in yesterday's video, I think 0 to 7 is when you are most connected to the true essence of who you are. And it's like, the thing I saw said that ego and conditioning start settling in at about 8. So, of course, they want to, as soon as somebody's of childbearing age, they want her to be bearing children to the dirty old men that have no business having access to her good energy, so because they will be forever latched on to that energy and sucking the life out of her and her child. Because okay, so there's this other thing that I heard that I've talked about on here before too, where, okay, so considering the idea that baby girls are born with all the eggs that they will have in their lifetime, right? So if you consider that, okay, we'll use my mom, 555. We'll use my mom and grandma for an example. When my grandma was pregnant and getting ready to give birth to my mother, and my mother had all the eggs that she would have in her lifetime, including the one that would eventually become me. That is 3 generations right there that are connected. So the dirty old men want access to the younger girls to make them bear their children for the sake of having access to 3 generations of women, right? To suck the life out of 3 generations, right? It's an easy bam bam bam. You got, of course, there's this isn't really a conscious thing that they maybe actively are aware of, but at an energetic level, this is a thing that's going on, right? And there's a light that just came on over there. Yeah, so they make the young girls who believe that they are property of their father until they are property of their husband, right? Then they must bear children. And, can be stoned or whatever if they are unable to have children, right? That kind of bullshit. This is the fucked up glory that religion gives you. Or people, religion. We'll stick with religion. Because again, as I've said many times, Jesus came out of one religion not to create another fucking religion. That was an example of how, okay, so the system already had its hooks in a lot of the people, right? So Jesus came to show people that it is possible to do the healing work, and that you must do the healing work and, die to self, basically, have an ego death. That's what needs to happen before you can remember who you are as a divine being, right? So because the church of the time had its hooks in, most of the people at that time frame, Jesus was like this big rebel and whatnot, and he was a problem for the religious community, clearly. And so after he's out of the picture, it kind of starts activating those chords of where the toxic, creepy old men can use their energetic sway to, attack attack other people and make it so they have the ability to, pull them back into the chaos, right? Pull them back into the religious brainwashing. So it was the church that exists today, they have a lot of things they like to talk about Jesus, but they don't actually push living like Jesus, because he's something that's supposed to be very separate and disconnected from you, because you cannot be like him, because if you are like him and you remember your divine essence, then religion loses control. So because there were still all these cords that connect through the generations of the people that had bought into the bullshit because they thought themselves to be property of these dirty old men, and then, this thing happens and people start shifting, and then religion gets its clutches back in, right? It starts, okay, so I talked about like the creators on YouTube that focus on therapy from healing from narcissistic abuse, right? And so Jerry Wise talks about the Narcissistic Family Super Self. And so for that, that's my example, my grandfather was the main narcissist in the family. My grandmother was the first line of complacency. My words, obviously. She was the first line of complacency. She entered into this energetic agreement that, he is supposed to be, this big deal, whatever, and she would cater to his bullshit. So, when she's pregnant with my mother, and my mother is getting ready to be born and has all the eggs that she will have through her lifetime, one of which is me, there's this connection, right? So my mom is born, and she's 5 years older than her sister, or the middle sister, and 8 years older than the youngest sister. So she had all of this time where she sees mommy catering to daddy's bullshit and realizing that she has to earn daddy's love and affection, right? So as a child, in the span of time where they're most in the divine essence, she's watching him not love her, and maybe there are things that make it so she thinks he loves her or whatever, but mostly she grows up with this sort of existence, and it is especially solidified when she hits 8 and the ego is in development or whatever, and the conditioning and all that stuff, where she is set on this path of proving herself to earn daddy's love and affection. And especially because she's a daughter, and what are you gonna do with the daughter? He was supposed to have an heir, right? Somebody his stuff could go to, right? So, somebody to carry on the name and all that bullshit. And he had a daughter. And then he had another daughter. So by the time the third daughter comes around, he's accepted that he's not going to have any sons. So that daughter becomes the favorite, because at least she's a tomboy and into sports and stuff. But the older two are still locked into this idea of having to earn daddy's love and affection, right? And okay, so then my mom marries my dad when she, make me math. She's born in 60. She married him in 79 before she graduated high school. So she's 19. Or right before she turned 19. And she just knew it was just her biggest dream in life to be a mother. That was her biggest goal. That was what she knew she was supposed to do. Because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Religion has brainwashed that you're supposed to be, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, right? So she has my brother at 20, and she has me at 22. And I've talked about many times that I've always been the I've always been the black sheep. I knew from a young age that I could not win with them. Like, as far as, there was me and my brother. He was very much the favorite and I was very much not. And it's like, I felt their hatred on more than one time. And I think the biggest reason for that was because I was the one that could see the wound that they were living from and see through the bullshit that, he talked big game, but it was his insecurity was the thing that was talking. But, like the questions I would ask, especially when I think I was around 7, I feel like the questions that I asked and the things that I said were what made him have this sort of energetic... Okay, so I remember after the deal with my cousin came up, and I think I was trying to talk to them about something, and my grandma and grandpa had just moved up here. We're back home from Oklahoma, and I remember being in this room and feeling like the freaking elephant in the room. It's like there's this big, horrible thing that nobody's willing to talk about. But it was like there was this energetic conversation with my grandfather and my mother at the time saying, she's going to be the end of us. She has to be stopped. Talking about me. And it wasn't actually spoken words. This is like this energy. I've always been tuned into the energy of the environment around me. So since I have this thing that I pick up from my mother and my grandfather, they were the ones that, I felt their hatred very much, many times. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time. And my grandmother is like first line of complacency. She was right there with my brother's the favorite, and maybe because just made myself jump. Saw that thing flash, or like moved it over and caught the shininess on that thing and jumped. Anyway, so thank you for safety. We'll just throw that out there because it's starting to get a little weirded out. I admit it. Anyway, where was I? So they moved back. Oh, my grandma playing favorites. Or my grandma and grandpa playing favorites, right? So my brother was the favorite. I was not. And they let it be known. So my brother knew it too, right? And he wasn't okay with it, but what could he do? So, okay, so the narcissistic family super self. So what that would be is, once I started, so with the family, now where's that coming from? Oh, it's that light. Okay, I don't know where I'm at. Okay, I'll just come back here to my slouching. So the narcissistic family super self, what that would look like is everybody has entered into this agreement at some level. They might not consciously be aware of it. I think most of them were not. However, when I would start expressing concerns or talking about things, okay, like say to my mom's youngest sister, and I say her because when I was starting to work through this stuff with my dad and, talk through this stuff on here about him, she was the one that was asking me a lot of questions. She wanted to know what the problem was that I had with my father, but she was kind of going about it in a roundabout way. But at one point, she made the comment that she can't imagine anything that... She said, I know my dad isn't perfect, but I can't imagine him doing anything that would make me want to disconnect from him. Like I was basically talking about, walking away from and all this stuff. So that is basically one of those pieces of that narcissistic family super self. It's stepping up to make me, kind of gaslight me, to make me question myself and what I'm doing and think I'm the problem because I'm seeing what he's doing as a problem and calling attention to it. But that's your dad, and why would you do that? So that's where that comes in at, right? But I don't remember why I got there. Narcissistic Family Super Self. Oh, pulling you back into the bullshit, right? So since there are these cords that are, energetically, we all have them at this energetic level, and we, we're all connected. It comes down to that. We are all connected, and there are these cords that, we have energetic agreements with people. So when there's a situation like that with my family, like, everybody catered to my grandfather's bullshit. And when I was 8 and the obsession was became his death, everything was about his death, and we all basically had to make him feel like he just couldn't die, and that was just like this big tragic thing, and like everything was always about, well, this is the thing that's going to kill me, right? So that was always his obsession. So the family was in agreement with that. They agreed to enable his bad behavior, and what he was doing was sucking the life out of us, right? So if we obsess over his death, then we're not able to have our own lives and actually live them. So when my brother and I started, I started making the connection, and I started talking to my brother about what I was noticing. I started setting boundaries, started pulling my energy back, and it's like, this ain't right. And then I started telling him what I was noticing. And then he was like, I started helping give him the things like, the rocks and the other things to clear energy, like salt, and to clear it from your system if you have to be around toxic people afterwards. Clear that shit out. So I have like salt, bath salts. I used to be really into taking baths, and now that I realize that that's something that was helping me to clear the toxic energies, it's like that makes that much more sense, paired with the all my crabby placements and whatnot. But yeah. So going back to the religious end. So once Jesus is dead and gone, and there's enough time that's passed that people aren't remembering it as clearly because he's not still around and they can't still talk to him about it, then religion gets in. You insert Pharisees back in at some level. Maybe the grandchildren of the original Pharisees or whatever, and they start trying to undo what Jesus came to do. Right. So then they start, I don't know how long it took before they started to make him, or to deify him as this untouchable entity, and completely neglected the bit where, I think there's a verse that talks about Jesus saying, "I have called you brothers." Stood out to me. And yet everybody seems to forget that. They seem to they want to elevate him and deify him and all this stuff. It's like, he's no more divine than any of the rest of us. And we are all divine beings. We are all an aspect of the whole. But because of these energetic cords, once enough people had, were unable to, maybe the main people, once they died off or whatever, shove it down the line a little bit and then activate new Pharisees. So they start tweaking things. And in Annie's Wednesday night class, at one point, she showed this video. And it was kind of funny because we were talking about reincarnation was part of it. And people were talking about how the thing we were watching was talking about how reincarnation got removed from the texts. Because the original, the people in that time frame, like in Jesus' lifetime, would have known and accepted that reincarnation was a thing. But because, I don't know if it was a king and a queen or what, but there was this, Origen was the prophet, whatever he was, who, you know, I'm going to call her a queen. I don't know this for sure. It's like Theodicea? I don't know the name. Something like that. It was talking about how she and her husband were talking, and, you know, they were not happy because they were losing control of the people, and especially this mouthy Origen character, right? So they decided to have the reincarnation bit removed from the scripture so that going forward, this idea was completely gone. They scrapped it. So this is the only life you have, and if you fuck it up, then you're going to hell. And it's like, that's like way early on, right? So then you just have all these energetic cords. So the people that were, I guess, descendants of the original Pharisees and have these various energetic agreements that they have with people, and of course, you know, they're marrying off marrying the little children and all this stuff, and you know, then they you know, they basically, they want to have access to the sacred womb space at an early age, 555, because that's better energy, right? That's life-giving energy. They want to suck the life out of the people. So if they can keep girls pregnant at a young age, and, you know, they have to be baby makers, that's their sole purpose. So there's all these energetic cords, right? And so if anybody starts getting smart and learning things, they can rely on the Narcissistic Family Super Self to start pulling it back into the crap. So yeah. And on that note, I think I finished that thought. On that note, I'm going to go home and watch this and get it posted, and then maybe figure out what else I need to finish of that bit. I think I handled most of it, but I don't know if there's something I left out or whatever. But also, it's like almost 10 o'clock, and I want to see what these messages are too. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.